So, Arvind, we just spoke about what a vaccine is and how it works, right? So now we understand that it is a mechanism through which. So first we were trying to understand how immune system works. Then we understood how a vaccine is supposed to work. But there are a lot of concerns now around this vaccine in terms of the fact that it's a common knowledge that vaccines take a number of years to get developed, and then a number of years are taken for the trials and everything. So people are getting this feeling that this vaccine has been rushed and might not be that effective. So we want your take on that.
Okay, so it's true that vaccines take a lot of time. In fact, vaccines in general take a lot of time to produce, and it kind of feels eerie why it's been so quickly, because it's been less than a year since the vaccines were in development. I think the first lockdown was imposed in March, if I'm not wrong, and till now, so it's not even a year since we have started developing the vaccines. So the idea is that, first of all, this is not the first vaccine that we are making in our in our career as scientists, as human scientists, for this whatever 100 200 years. This is not the first vaccine that we are making. We have made multiple vaccines before, and we are using strict protocols and guidelines that we have followed in the production of all the previous vaccines in order to make this current one. So that is why, and the other thing is, the government has helped boost the production of the vaccine by removing a lot of bureaucratic checkpoints. So what happens is, sometimes your vaccines and your proposals lie on a person's table, on a grant, the funding agency proposal table, or say the government's table for approval, or the DCTI's table for approval. It stays there for a long time because of various reasons. Because of, let's say, someone doesn't want to approve your drug, so he just wants to drag you out. So there are multiple reasons. Let's not get into the reasons why bureaucratic checkpoints take a lot of time, because we know how efficient our Babu system is. So that is one reason why.
And it's the same across the world, right? It's not just India. It's the same across the world.
Totally, totally. It's the same across the world, and that's why we have to understand that removal of bureaucratic checkpoints, this is important, because now we understand how irrelevant and how useless the bureaucratic checkpoints are. Because now we know, even in less than a year of development, we can come with a vaccine if we are dedicatedly pursuing it. And the other reason is, all the virologists that were experts in making vaccines, but they were working in other areas, they have also been mobilized to work in this. So previously, you have, let's say, 1 or 2 teams in the world working on some virus production. Now we have all the teams that have expertise in production of vaccines across the world. All of them have been mobilized into the making of the virus, including our departments, even IIT, National Institute of Virology, Pune, IIT Bombay, all these institutes, Bharat Biotech, Hyderabad, all these institutes, all the virologists who have expertise have been mobilized to pursue this goal, because it is of immediate importance. And all the other projects have been sidelined for paving the way for this one. That is one reason why the span of 10 years has been reduced to 1 year. Now the other reason why it takes so much of time is that there are different phases of drug trials. So a drug goes through many phases. The first phase is when you inject it into animals and check. We'll get into the ethics of that later. So the next stage is when you insert it into few patients, as an experimental drug, and then you insert it into hundreds of patients to check. And then so the first level is basically just your toxicity. So the few patients that you are injecting into, it will just give you an idea whether the drug is safe for consumption. So we have already, so some of the vaccines, including the Bharat Biotech Covaxin, that one has cleared that particular phase. and our which one is that? Pfizer BioNTech. That one was also I think that is in phase 3. So there are different phases. So phase 3 is basically when you inject it into thousands of patients, and then you kind of come up with it. Then the next stage is basically you mass mobilize it into all the people that are that you can possibly vaccinate. So there are different phases. Now all these phases take a lot of time because you need to sign up volunteers. You have to if they if you are giving some incentive to the volunteer, you have to make those arrangements. You have to find participants for the even you have to filter out from the volunteers. Like, I can volunteer for it, but if I have high blood sugar, or if I have high blood pressure, etc., and that is an important confounding point, I cannot take you as a volunteer even if you willingly say that I want to get tested, because there are many factors that come into play, and a researcher has to sit and correct for all these factors that will influence. So basically, age, sex, everything comes into picture, and including your comorbidity. All these factors have to be taken into consideration. So you have to find volunteers for that. But in a normal setting, what happens is volunteers are not very commonly found. But in a virus setting, in a pandemic setting, people who have a very high sense of conscientiousness, they usually say, I will come up. So there are more people coming up for the volunteering than there used to be before, and that's why you can filter them out very quickly. And that's why there have been many roadblocks that have been removed from the process of developing a virus vaccine. And that's why we have come up to this stage where in a few months we will have a proper vaccine that will actually be effective.
So, because people think the vaccine is rushed, the next conclusion is that this vaccine will have a lot of side effects, and it is better to get infected with the virus than going ahead and taking this vaccine and enduring its side effects. So I want to understand from you is what kind of side effects can a vaccine like this have? And is it really going to be lesser impact on a human body if I get infected with the virus versus me taking the vaccine?
Okay, so this is very important, and let's just talk about this. Let's just talk about in general what side effects a vaccine can have. Okay, so vaccine has many ingredients. One is the virus. Now, in this particular vaccine, the COVID vaccine, it is a new technology which has been development for a long time. This particular technology has been in development for, say, a decade, if not more. Okay, so but for the mRNA of this virus, whenever it came, that's when we started working with it. But the technology itself has been worked upon. Now I have sent you a link. Let me just check which one. Spike protein, the annual reviews link. Check it. Yeah, so if you can scroll down, you might find a diagram. So
oh, this is beautiful. This looks
yeah.
like a okay, I don't even want to comment what this looks like because I'll sound like a fool. You know.
Okay, so
Here we are.
this is so what is COVID-19? So COVID-19 is the short form of coronavirus disease. So stands for disease, and 19 is the year that it first occurred, and that's why it's called COVID-19. So why is it called coronavirus? So the virus has proteins called spikes. So it's like a ball, and on the balls you have many spikes. Okay, and these spikes, they appear to look like crowns on that particular head. Like, so you can assume the ball to be a head and the spike proteins are the crown. So crown translates to corona. That's why it's called coronavirus. So these the diagrams that I have sent, so this the diagram on the screen is the spike protein that is being targeted. So what happens is, from the coronavirus that has been isolated, they have cut out the mRNA part. So basically mRNA is messenger RNA.
Okay.
So they have produced the messenger RNAs, and they are injecting this messenger RNA along with some adjuvants into our body. So basically,
And what
they
is
will
an
inject.
adjuvant?
So an adjuvant is something that helps our body. It helps in stabilizing and increasing the immune response. So it
Okay.
makes our body a bit more sensitive to it. Okay. So what happens is when the mRNA is injected into our body, so it is going to be injected in our muscles. It's not going to be injected into our nasal area and respiratory area, because people assume that this is a respiratory virus. Then why are you not giving inhalation kind of vaccine? So there are many different ways. In fact, inhalation is one method that is being worked on, but the recent vaccines, they will be given into our muscles. So what will happen is it is just the messenger RNA for this particular protein. So when it will go into our body will the cells in our body will intake that particular mRNA, and they will produce this particular protein by itself.
Okay.
So this is where the claim of whether the vaccines will alter our DNA comes into picture. Because
Exactly.
people
So
say,
you have a number of people claiming that the Moderna vaccine is going to alter the DNA, and we're going to look
correct.
like mutants ourselves in a few years.
Yeah. So that's not actually true. So what happens is there is definitely a genetic material being injected into our body, and that genetic material will not get integrated with our own genome. It will be independently synthesized in the cells, and the spike protein that is synthesized from this messenger RNA. So messenger RNA is basically just like a set of information, a code that will lead to the production of this particular spike protein that is on the left. So this protein will be present, it will be synthesized in our own body, and it will be showcased outside our own cells. So if this is our cell, it will be showcased on our own cells. Now we have some immune cells of our own, right? So they will come and they will recognize this particular spike protein, and they will check, okay, this is what the coronavirus looks like. They will get an idea, and then they will kind of build their immunity. So now what happens is there are two stages. There is the early response and the late response. In the early response, we release some kinds of antibodies that is called IgM. Now those remain in our body for a very less amount of time. So that's why we have multiple shots of this particular vaccine, because what happens is one is the main dose, the rest of them are booster doses. So what happens is your booster will essentially just kickstart your body once again to, okay, don't sleep, produce it again. So our body will keep producing it, and later what happen is that it will produce immunoglobulin G, which has a very high half-life. So it will remain in our body for 7 to 21 days. So that's why what happens is when you're taking these shots, you after taking the shots, it has that there has to be a certain buffer period given for the next shot. So your body first needs to recognize your first shot. So it will produce some antibodies, and in the second shot, it will again it will produce even more antibodies. And in the second exposure, which is the second vaccine shot, your body will have a very good memory for that particular virus. Now, I don't know if I sent you that particular picture, but there is this graph that I sent you previously, but I'll just put it on the screen in post editing. So the graph basically shows that there are placebos and there is actual vaccine for the BioNTech. I'm talking about the Pfizer BioNTech vaccine. So they have shown that in the graph, the placebos increase, the incidence of coronavirus infection increases exponentially when there is a placebo pill.
So what
Placebo
is a
vaccine that will.
placebo pill? What is a
Okay.
placebo pill?
Yes, I have to explain what is a placebo pill. Is basically something that you will think that it is a vaccine, but you won't actually get the vaccine.
Okay.
So it is a process. So there is a technique called randomized control trials, which we do in scientific research. So in order to prove that, let's say my vaccine is working, I have to have a control. So
Okay.
what I do is I give one patient a vaccine, and the other patient I will give something like water or something like that.
And I'll
That's
just
not the
tell
exact.
that patient that it is a vaccine.
Yeah, so it is like those doctors that prescribe peppermint goalies to people and then say
Okay.
you will get cured. So that's called placebo.
Okay.
Okay, so those people will not get the actual vaccine, and there will be some people who will actually get the vaccine.
So what we're
Yeah,
saying
go
is
ahead. Go ahead.
neither the person who's taking the vaccine nor the person who's taking the placebo knows the actual truth. So then we are able to compare the results and we are able to determine whether it actually works or not.
Yes, yes. Because during the duration of the study, it is blinded. So when you actually go on to do the data collection, and that's when you realize, okay, there are these many placebos and these, because it is coded. So if I give you a code A, I will give you code A, I will give myself code B. So it might be anyone will be placebo and anyone will be, a vaccine. So
Okay.
that is no data collection later. Now that is plotted onto a graph, and you see that the placebos increase exponentially, whereas the people who got the vaccine 7 days after the second dose, the incidence is very, very low. Very low. Like I will flash the particular graph on the screen whenever I'm editing the video. So that is a very important finding, and this actually again segues into the next question, which is probably the minister from Haryana who got the vaccine, if I'm not wrong, right?
Exactly. So I'm just going to give the context to the listeners. So there was this news that flashed last week that one of the ministers, most probably the health minister of Haryana, he got one dose of the COVID-19 vaccine, and after a few days, he got inflicted with COVID-19 virus, and then there was quite a scare and chaos across North that this vaccine is not effective. Because if it were effective, why would he get the COVID-19 virus? So that is the context we're talking about. So go ahead.
Yes, yes. So there are multiple explanations to this situation. The main explanation is that you need to take the vaccine at least twice for it to actually have the 95% efficacy that the company has stated. Okay, so you have to take it. So there is a particular time gap. So the first dose, between the first dose and the second dose, I'm not really sure about that. But after the second dose, the incidence has been very less according to the study that they have presented. Okay, so the second dose is important, and in fact, even later we might have to take some booster doses later, say 3 months later or 6 months later, and after that we'll come back to like normalcy.
Yeah, I
So
think
that's the idea.
it's the same with almost all the vaccines that are in the market for kids also, because
Yeah.
children have to keep taking these booster vaccines. So
Yes. Yes.
a mother like me can relate. Maybe people who don't take kids for vaccination, they are the ones who really get scared. For us who take our kids for vaccination, understand this kind of schedule for especially the new vaccines. So
Yes.
one question that comes to my mind is that the vegan community and even some people in the vegetarian community have a lot of reservations with this vaccine because they've been told that this vaccine contains bovine fetal serum. So you're also a vegan, as am I. So I want to understand your take on this particular situation where a vegan refuses to take the vaccine because he believes that it has animal ingredients or animal constituents in it.
Hmm. Okay. So let me just mention some of the animal based ingredients in the vaccine. I'm not sure if all the vaccines in the market have it, but fetal bovine serum, I'm not sure if it is directly present in the vaccine itself, but it is used to culture the cells that are used for the virus for the vaccine. I'm sorry. So fetal bovine serum is basically just a growth media, and it is procured in a very, very cruel manner. Basically, they take a pregnant cow and they slaughter her, and they simultaneously bring out the fetus, and then they insert a catheter into the heart of the fetus and they draw out the blood. Now, before I talk anything more about this, let me just mention that fetal bovine serum is not it can be replaced. So there is a study. I will flash it on the screen. I haven't sent you the link. It just came to my mind right now. So I will flash it on the screen. the particular researcher has used fetal bovine serum. I'm sorry, she has proposed an alternative to fetal bovine serum using human blood serum that is obtained from blood banks.
Okay.
Okay, so there is no cruelty involved in it. There is no person running behind a human with a syringe and trying to get a syringe full of blood for the serum. It is basically ethically sourced from blood banks, and they have standardized the protocol, and they will be using it. So it is a landmark study in my opinion, and I'm sure it will be used in the future as well. But before we go any further, let me just mention that the reason people use fetal bovine serum is the dairy industry. So if you're someone out there who is concerned about cows and fetal bovine serum and all that, and if you go and consume dairy, ice cream, and all that stuff, then you're part of the problem, because the dairy industry sells the fetal bovine serum as a byproduct of the dairy industry itself. And that's how, so if we did not have any option, we would have figured out the human serum much before. But because the dairy industry exists, and because the dairy industry has such a surplus of cows that are pregnant and going to be slaughtered, then that's why we have so many cows that are pregnant and they will be slaughtered for fetal bovine serum. So before you give me crap about ethics about the fetal bovine serum, just people need to introspect and see whether they themselves are contributing the dairy industry. Because let's be honest, buying fetal bovine serum is not contributing to the dairy industry as much as the consuming dairy itself is.
Dairy itself is. Okay.
Yeah. So the big problem with fetal bovine serum can only be addressed by a curbing our own dairy consumption, and two, by when people are becoming less speciesistic as we go ahead. And talking about the animal testing ethics vagera, which comes into the picture with the COVID vaccine trials. See, so there have been certain statistics that have been given to the number of animals that were used in the production of this virus, in the testing of this virus. So if we take all those animals and we count the number of cortical neurons that they have, okay, and we map it onto the level that a human has, and we equate the two, we will come to know that 3 humans, so equivalent, animal equivalent of 3 humans have been sacrificed for this. Again, I'm using the word sacrifice because it's just an industry jargon. It is not a sacrifice, it's murder. But 3 humans will be killed, not 3 humans exactly, but 3 humans worth of animals have been killed for the production of this vaccine. Okay. Now, this depends on our normative ethics. What is my ethic? So if someone tells me that you have a choice that you will kill 4 people, 4 humans in the world, and you will save millions of people. Now, this is a choice that comes down to personal ethics. Now, if someone tells me that you have to kill 4 people, the 4 people will not have any say in it. They will not be able to give consent, and but they will be killed randomly. Okay. But because of the death of those 4 people, there will be millions of lives that will be saved. Can you tell me if you would agree to that deal?
I would, I think.
Yeah, I think any person in their right mind would say that, okay, staking the lives of 4 humans will be okay for saving the millions, right? So that might be varying. So, okay, some people have a deontologic perspective. They say, no, I will not kill 4 people to save millions of people. But then in that case, you'll have to bite the bullet on some things like, okay, so if you say that I don't want to kill 4 humans, and that's why you're not going to take the vaccine, so are you going to stop living? Because our existence itself causes harm to animals. You are reduced to an absurd position where you have to admit that eating food is not vegan, or eating something that is not necessary for your survival is not vegan. So if I say tomorrow that because land mice are being killed in the farm to produce our wheat and rice and all that stuff, so if I eat a piece of cake which is not necessary for my survival, that's not vegan. Would you accept that line of reasoning?
Not exactly. So what we're trying to say here, or what I understand from what you're telling me, is that it is the difference between what is crucial to your survival versus what you can easily live without.
Correct.
Or even if not easily live without, then with a little bit of effort you can live without. So that's how it is for us vegans. We eat
So
the
see, again,
alternatives.
coming back, so the thing is, animal testing had been done in the past, so no more animals are being tested anymore for this particular virus. Only humans are being tested right now. So if you say that I won't take the vaccine because animals are tested, then that's a false statement, because animals were tested in the past. Because if you say that if you say that for the vaccine animals were tested in the past, that's why I won't take it now, then you have to quit all allopathic medicines and say that, okay, I won't take aspirin, I won't take penicillin, I won't take any antibiotic, because all of them were tested on animals at some point. So
Okay.
there is a if you take those extreme positions, my idea is you would come to a reductio like this, which is completely unreasonable. It's called a reductio ad absurdum in logical circles, basically.
And a
So
number of
basically,
capsules also have, if I'm not wrong,
gelatin.
the gelatin.
Gelatin.
Yeah, gelatin. So
Yeah,
number of capsules have it. So some capsules, while we have the alternatives, the vegetarian alternatives, Sun Pharma makes vegetarian alternatives, but there
Yes.
are many that still
Yes.
don't have. So there are times when you end up taking them, irrespective of knowing that they have been made with the remnants of animals.
See, what we can do as vegans is that we can try to be, now again, this is where the important point is. We as vegans have a moral imperative. So we have a moral imperative to live as long as we can and as healthily as we can, because we are the one tribe of people that actually cares about important issues like exploitation of animals, etc., etc. So we are the one tribe that actually cares. So if we don't take care of ourselves and we die in the next 20, 30 years, what after that? Do we have to live as long as we can and as healthily as we can, so that we can set an example. Because let's be honest, nobody actually cares about social justice, nobody actually cares about animal love for animals, etc. we so if we see a vegan who is healthy, and we see a vegan who is doing well, who is successful in their life, etc., etc., if we see someone who is complete in their life, then we see, okay, veganism is something that is possible. Okay, the animal
Exactly.
ethics is something that comes later. you know if when the first time I was introduced to veganism, if some unhealthy, extremely disabled kind of guy comes and tells me, oh, go veganism and you will be healthy and all that, of course I won't be vegan.
Exactly.
I agree with the ethics. But seeing that will kind of, in my mentality, somewhere in my subconscious, it will deliver a message that this is not for you. But if
Exactly.
we see vegans who are living long, who are living healthily, who are living well, then we kind of subconsciously accept the fact. And that is what is happening in the recent days, because we see that vegans are becoming more and more healthy. So that's why most of the influencers are also trying to get on the vegan, bandwagon, and trying to promote it, etc.
Yes.
Because people are subconsciously looking at those perspectives other than the ethics, because ethics is definitely the most important part, but people don't look at the ethics.
Yes, they
And
don't.
that's why I think it is our imperative that we have to live, we have to survive by any cost, and we have to live healthily to a point where you know we are not uh, we don't come off as, let's say, because what happens is, if we are not healthy, the non-vegans will point fingers at us and they will say that, oh, look at him, he's a vegan and he's unhealthy, so why should I become vegan?
Exactly.
Yeah, so we have to
Living,
counter
you
this
have to
trend.
live by
And
example.
yeah, so you have to live by example, and that's why even I myself have started working on my health. I used to be very unhealthy before, and I'm sure many people who are like that have also done the same, because it is necessary that we send a message. And
Yes.
not taking the vaccine, and so let's assume that I am a vegan and I'm not taking the vaccine because animal testing or animal ingredients or something like that. Okay, and say 10 years down the line, because of the because of the infection that I got, my kidneys are fried. Okay, 10 years later. So 10 years later, hopefully when things are fine, what will people say? They will say, oh, look at him, he's a vegan, that's why his kidneys are fried.
Yeah, that's what happens all the time, no? Any disease that
That's what happens.
you get inflicted with, it's because you're a vegan.
Exactly.
That's the general impression. Yes.
You do anything, you fall down, break your leg, you fall down from 10th floor and break your leg, people will say, oh, vegan diet. See,
Yeah, your bones are weak.
so weak.
Your bones are weak because you're vegan. Yes. Okay.
Yeah.
I
So
understand.
that's my reasoning. That's my reasoning as to why we should take the vaccine. Okay, if you have reservations about the side effects, let me just mention in brief that there have been claims that the vaccines in the past have caused autism, and the paper that was published has been so there were, I think, 13 or 14 authors on the paper, and 12 or 13 of the authors have retracted their statements.
You're talking about the
And the
MMR
one,
vaccine. You're talking about the
yes,
MMR
yes,
vaccine. Yes.
yes, I'm talking about the
I
previous
have
MMR
I
vaccine.
have heard that, and it was in circulation in Indian circles a few years back,
Yeah,
with a lot of furor, and the mothers were very much afraid of getting their kids vaccinated with the MMR vaccine, only because everywhere they were saying that it's causing autism.
yeah. So basically, the point is that most of the scientists who published that paper have retracted their statement because eventually there was no link found. So first
Yes.
of all, if you are a vegan who is watching this and you are skeptical about the vaccine, you are free to wait for some time. But in the period you are waiting, make sure that you don't go out. Make sure you're wearing mask and you're taking appropriate precautions. You are free to wait for as long as you want, so that you can see that many people are not being affected. And the other point is that if I am Pfizer company who is making the BioNTech vaccine, I want people to continue buying from me in the future. If I rush a vaccine, and of course, there is this credit for being the first to introduce the vaccine in the market, but there is more credit to introduce a vaccine that is most effective. So
Exactly.
if I am Pfizer and I want to remain in business, not just in vaccines, but in other pharmaceuticals, if I want to, if I want to remain in business, I cannot risk making a vaccine that will harm you. Because if you take my vaccine and something harm happens to you, you will not buy from me, and that's not the end of it. You will go and tell 100 different people don't buy from Pfizer. So people will not buy even simple drugs like penicillin or
Yeah.
aspirin or paracetamol from me, because a vaccine that was made by Pfizer has given me a severe reaction. So if I am Pfizer, I cannot absolutely risk it to give a dangerous product into the market.
Yes.
Okay, because I want to sustain. I am the biggest. Pfizer is arguably the biggest pharmaceutical company that exists today, and I want to remain in that position for 150, 200 years in the future. Okay, so I cannot risk one small mistake leading me to be wiped out of the market instantaneously.
Yeah.
So that is something the pharma companies will never take a risk. So
Yeah.
that is why the risk factor has also been reduced. And the final question that we will close this discussion with is that even after taking the vaccine, there are some claims that we have to wear the mask, we have to social distance, etc. Why is that? Am I right? Is that the question that popped into your head?
Yes, that is. And along with that, I would quickly also want you to answer the claim that people have, or the confusion that people have regarding viruses, that, what if it inflicts me once? I will get immune for life. So you have to
Right.
also tell us that, is it the same case with this virus also? Or is it like dengue virus that, first time you get it, you will survive, you might survive. Second time, if you get it, you might not survive at all. So that is also something that I want you to answer before we close. We have 3 minutes.
So since we are talking about vaccines, so I will talk about that first. So again, the risk is that you will get infected and you will get, so again, there is no guarantee, and then there is no study that proves that if you get the infection once, you won't get it again. Okay, there have been many instances. Even in Bangalore, there was this one individual who had a case of second infection. So he or she was infected first, they recovered, and they got it again. But the problem is the second time you contract the disease, your complications are going to be severe, because that's the trend that has been seen in this. Okay, so that is what we have to consider, is the risk worth taking. That is one. And second thing is, your body is not capable of holding on to this memory for a long time, because it's the first infection. So unless you get infected multiple times, you won't be completely immune to the disease. And people say, I am a young person, I'm a healthy person, and I have very strong immune system, and I take this treatment, I take that treatment, and my immune system is like strong. Even then, again, we're coming back to the Indian Army example. Regardless of how strong our borders are, if someone drops a terrorist from the sky, our borders will be breached, and for some point, for some time, there will be unrest until that particular threat has been resolved. So that is the same in case of our body. So that's why it is because we need multiple doses of infection. That's why a vaccine is more reliable than getting infected with the virus, because getting infected with the virus will give you symptoms, but getting infected with the vaccine will not give you symptoms that are harmful to our body. So that's another discussion. So I will, I won't get into that discussion. And the other point that I want to close with that is that, what was it?
Do we need to continue using masks, or once we get the vaccine, should we just?
Yeah. So do we need to use masks? So what happens is, so the concept is of risk compounding. So the percentage of risk that you get from just wearing a mask is, I think, 15% or something like that. I'm not sure about the numbers. Don't look at the numbers. But basically, if you wear a mask, there is some X number of percentage points where your risk will be there that you will contract the infection. If you use your mask plus social distancing, that adds, that reduces some percentage more. So it will cut your percentage in half. So your risk of getting infected will become less. So if you take a vaccine, and if you wear a mask, and if you social distance, you can see that the risk is being compounded, and you can see how much the risk falls. So what happens is, as more and more people do it, there will be a development of herd immunity.
Yes.
And then when herd immunity is at its best, the virus will be completely eradicated.
And that's what we are looking at. That's what we're hoping for.
That's the aim.
Okay. So thank you so much, Arvind, for this. And I hope that it would take care of all the questions that people have. And I hope through your channel and through the means where you're from where you are going to submit this information to people, I hope that if they have more questions, they'll come back to you on this. And as far as I'm concerned, all my questions are addressed. So thank you so much and have a good day.
Thank you so much. And the last point I want to mention is that I'm open for a debate. If someone wants to debate me in a public forum, I'm up for that.
Okay, great. So okay, here you have a virus and a vaccine challenge put across to everybody. So anyone who wants to debate with Arvind, he's available. Thank you so much and take care. Bye-bye.